So I am here with Eli-Bella Wood, the director of the film Death Drive. Welcome to Montreal.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We're very happy to have you. So I want to start by asking you about your background. You come from art history. So what drew you into making films, being a filmmaker?
So I guess what drew me to making films, I guess it was actually watching films. It's funny, it actually just came up in conversation, but I learned about sort of what was possible in the world of filmmaking through art history and like experimental films and sort of portraying a dreamscape, and that became really interesting to me. And in the making of this film, I just woke up and I had this dream where it felt like I was watching a movie that I was also participating in. And I wrote it down, stashed it away, and then when I was back home in Calgary, like you said, I was in this sort of bedroom where the dream took place, and I just kind of realized that it was time to make it. So, yeah.
That's interesting. When you talked about dreams, I thought about the filmmaker David Lynch.
Okay, yes.
He's a very
R.I.P.
great fan of dreams, actually.
Yeah.
So can I say that your work might be inspired a bit by David Lynch, or not at all?
So I absolutely love David Lynch. There was movies, like watching movies, and then I remember the first time I watched, I think it was Blue Velvet, I think, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting, and I didn't even really know you could do something like that, and so no, I'm a huge fan, and I think that must be in part of why I think it's possible to try to make the dreamscape in cinema, but my goal for Death Drive was really to just really see if I could, like when I close my eyes and I think of the dream, translate that on the screen. And I'm really, really happy that people are connecting the dots with David Lynch, because it makes sense to me. I'm like, you're a surrealist. And of course, I always like surrealists, but I also work with dreams as well. And like, I care a lot about them and I believe in them. So yeah, I'm honored and I'm grateful to have the comparison. Seriously. Thank you.
So you think you're gonna stay within this genre, the surrealism, the dreams? You feel like you found yourself in this?
Yes. So this is, I guess, why ultimately I am doing this, is because I have dreams that I want to make into movies. It feels strange. It's like I'm there, I'm in the world, and then I just write it down, and that's why I started writing in the first place.
Well, that's very interesting. You know, filmmaking films, the camera sometimes make us see stuff we don't see with our own eyes, or make us make something happen that we don't think it can happen actually in real life, and that's very, very interesting. I'm a filmmaker myself. I am more into the realistic genre, but it's very interesting.
Amazing.
David Lynch is one of my inspirations. That being said, it's actually a bit paradoxical for some people who are listening to us to say, okay, you did a surreal movie, but with the means you only had your grandparents' house.
Yes.
You mentioned a guy who has like a studio that during the Q&A.
Yes, yeah,
So
Dante,
tell
my
me more
DOP.
about this. How much sometimes certain limitations can perhaps block us, or perhaps can make us think outside the box?
Yeah, I love that question. Because that was such a big part of the making of Death Drive, was to see what was possible, because there was no budget in the film, right? It was, again, almost like an exercise to see what could happen. And it did feel like a home video. So I knew it was like, okay, the dream happened in my grandparents' house in a bedroom that I stayed in, like in my childhood. And I remember I was on the phone with my friend when I was kind of thinking if I'm crazy to do this or not. And it was a question of, it was like, okay, if I can get 2 cars, a gun, and a horse, I'll do it, was like the thing. And she's like laughing, and I'm like, I know, it's so ridiculous. And so it's funny, like finding the cars, specifically the car that was to represent death in the dream, that was a really interesting journey. It was like going to car shows, flagging down strangers on the street, like literally honking and being like literally pulling them over on the road, and they're like, what's going on, right? I'm like, but so I met Gary at a car show, in the same neighborhood that my grandparents live in, Calgary, and that was already a surreal moment in and of itself. It was like this Lincoln. It's like, I'm pretty sure it was the car that like JFK got like assassinated in, and it does have this really ominous, beautiful presence. And Gary is also an identical twin, and they had 2 cars, and they were twins, and the whole thing. I was like, you know, very David Lynch actually, right? And yeah, and so I guess basically the making of this film was like me running around like a headless chicken, trying to find these people and these connections. And that's how I met Dante Costello, who shot the film. So he is with this wonderful, amazing organization, CSIF, the Calgary Society of Independent Filmmakers, in Calgary, obviously. And I was in this position where I was like, everything's good. Okay, what bodies do I have? My grandparents, my best friend, her boyfriend, whatever I can get. And you know, then so John Scott, he's sort of a local legend. He was the man on the horse who provided the horse. That's another story. I'll get there if we get there. But so I was in this position where everything was good to go. And John Scott, who was this iconic, local legend, cowboy, OG icon, who was coming like basically tomorrow night. And I didn't have a camera. I just thought, okay, 2 cars, a gun, and a horse, that's gonna be the hardest thing. A camera I'll figure out when I need to, you know. And then I had everything except a camera. I was like, oh my God. And they were like, oh no, cameras are booked. They're booked. Anyways, I was recommended Calgary Society of Independent Filmmakers, and that's where I met Dante, and he was showing me around the cameras, and I was like, wait, so you know how to work these cameras? He's like, yeah. I'm like, so what are you doing tomorrow, right? So yeah.
That's a very nice story. Thank you for sharing the details, because you know, sometimes people, well, actually first-time filmmakers think that you really need a big budget to make a film. I always tell them, well, you don't have a camera, just use your phone.
Yeah, like use anything.
Use
right?
anything
like,
and make your
everything
idea
that
happen.
you have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the last question will be, I want you to address these filmmakers, these first-time filmmakers, and what advice would you give them other than use your phone if you don't have a camera? Because I just gave this advice.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, that's my advice. You can't use it.
Okay, so just through your journey, what can you tell them? What can you actually just inspire them? Say something to them so they can like make their project happen.
Oh my God, the pressure. But no, honestly, I would say just like decide to do it and do it. Like not wait for anyone to say yes or no. Use what you have, use what you know, and do it like tomorrow. Because there's always there's always this idea of financing, always this idea is whatever, but there's community around and people really support each other. And use your family, like I did. Like I'm like, use your grandparents, use your friends, and take your time, you know, because you're learning. And that was, I think, the biggest thing for me, the helping hand with Death Drive, using my grandparents' house, using my friends. I was able to take my time and learn my craft. And do it for free. Do it now, as best you can.
Thank you very much. I love this. So I want to welcome you again to Montreal and to the Canadian Independent Film Festival.
Thank you so much.
Eli-Bella Wood, the director of Death Drive. That's a good talk.
Much.
Thank you.
Thank you.